Ladies and gentlemen, it's 7 o'clock. We'll call our meeting to order, and since the chaplain from the fire department just came in, we'll ask him to come up and give an invocation if he would. Darrell, if you would, please. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, council, staff, and citizens, let's pray. Heavenly Father, help us to realize what a gift it is to have the gift of life each day. Help us to realize, even tonight, what a wonderful pleasure and honor it is to have a community like Graham. Help us to always be grateful, willing to serve. We thank you for all those who lead us, those who work hard every day, and even the ones that are out there in the community that perhaps they think all they're doing is just going to work and coming home. What a noble and honest and honorable service that is. Tonight, for the matters that come before this group, give them wisdom, guidance, common sense, clear minds, and your presence of your Spirit. Help us to not only lead with our head, but also with our heart, and make this community what you see it can become, even as great as it is already. We ask all of this in the name of Jesus Christ, my Savior. Amen.
Thank you, Darrell. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are the Graham City Council. Rest assured that anybody that wants to speak tonight will have an opportunity to do so. The first thing we've got on our agenda first is two retirees. Proclamation of commendation and appreciation for Sandra King for her service to the City of Graham. Whereas Sandra King diligently served the City of Graham Finance Department from August 16th, 1993 until January 31st, 2019. Whereas Sandra retired as finance officer on January 31st, 2019 with over 25 years of service. Whereas Sandra has proven to be a repository of knowledge and wisdom, providing aid and assistance to those of us fortunate enough to work alongside her, being always ready to give sound advice grounded in her keen insights. Whereas her outstanding character and commitment to finance have commanded the utmost respect from her colleagues, peers, and employees. Where it is desired the City Council to extend their deepest appreciation to Sandra for the excellent time and service she has afforded the citizens of Graham and her fellow employees. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the City Council of the City of Graham that Sandra be commended for her outstanding service to the City of Graham. Be it further proclaimed that an expression of appreciation be extended to Mrs. Sandra King in the form of this proclamation of commendation and appreciation, and this proclamation become a part of the official records of the City of Graham for all time, and the original thereof be presented to her in person this 5th day of February 2019. And I'll meet Sandra and her husband at the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, Sandra King has been invaluable to the citizens of the City of Graham and kept us going in the right direction. Sandra, Frank, you want to say?
Congratulations, Cindy. No more pivot tables, no more cruise, no more weekends and late nights. But in the proclamation, it said, made reference to a repository of knowledge. Sandra probably has the most institutional knowledge about the city as anybody. And that crosses all departments. So it's going to be hard to replace, but we wish you well and Godspeed in retirement.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
I have one more. Proclamation of commendation and appreciation to Johnny Andrews for his service to the City of Graham. Whereas Johnny Andrews diligently served the city of Graham from June 29th, 1989 until January 31st, 2019. Whereas Johnny retired as fire chief on January the 31st, 2019 with over 29 years of service. Whereas his dedication and determination resulted in advancement from the part-time summer employee in the streets department to the water meter reader to the city's first full-time fire inspector and ultimately the fire chief. Whereas Johnny has proven to be a repository, oh, that word again, repository of institutional knowledge and wisdom, providing aid and assistance to those of us fortunate enough to work alongside him, always ready to give some advice grounded in his keen insights. Whereas it is the desire of the City Council to extend their deepest appreciation to Johnny for the excellent time and service he has afforded the citizens of Graham and his fellow employees. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Graham that Johnny be commended for his outstanding public service to the City of Graham. Be it further resolved that an expression of appreciation be extended to Mr. Johnny Andrews in the form of this proclamation of commendation and appreciation. And this proclamation become a part of the official records of the City of Graham for all time, and the original thereof be presented to him in person this 5th day of February 2019. Johnny, come up, please. Terry, you want to come with him? Okay. Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Here's the accommodation. And whatever that is. Do you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Frank.
That's our official photographer.
Official
tonight.
photographer.
My last official.
I just want to thank everyone and just let everyone know that it was a wonderful experience working for the City of Graham. It's like a family. I've made lots of friends. And that's one of the most important things to me is the friendships that I've gained here with the city. And thank you very much. Thanks for looking at me. Keith, thank you very much.
I'll give you a high five. That's right.
You want to go around the room? Yeah, Ivy, we'll wait for you. Next, we have our consent agenda. A, approval of minutes, January the 8th. B, approval of minutes, January the 17th. C, amend motion for the city attorney's services for January the 17th special session. D, tax releases. E, tax collector's mid-year report. And F, the tax collector's debt set-off report. Anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda?
I would, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Could I pull item number C, item letter C?
C, anybody else? With that, I need a motion to approve A, B, D, E, and F of the consent agenda.
So move.
Thank you, sir. I need a second.
Second.
Thank y'all. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Let's go to C, amend the motion for city attorney services from January 17, 2019 special session. Griffin,
I just wanted a little clarity on exactly what we were amending. I see the minutes for the special session, but I don't see a motion or,
go to page 9 and look at the, not the last paragraph at 552, but look up there. I said February the 4th, and the meeting is February the 5th. So I messed up, and she was trying to get it through the consent agenda.
all right, I'll make a motion to approve.
Any more questions about this before we? Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed likewise. Back to where I was. Okay. Next, old business. Approve a contract with Robert Ward and Brian Coleman to provide city attorney services. I think, let's see, Keith, you're handling this for us?
I, along with Frankie, drafted this contract you have in your package that has the provisions in it as a
you're changing the relationship from a part-time employee to just contract services, a vendor, so to speak, and it'll be paid out of a different bucket of money here at the city. But that it has the standard insurance provisions in it, and the requirements that you put in about the 20 hours a week and the amount you agreed to fund it at. So I'll answer any question about it, but it's in your packet.
Questions, Melody first,
No, sir.
Griffin?
I guess the only question I had was, the contract is with the two attorneys, but doing business as the attorney at law firm. And I didn't know, with the two signatures at the end, is there any mechanism if one of the attorneys weren't able physically to practice law, is this readdressed in any way, or does this fall back to the Section 7 on termination? Would the city council just address it?
Yeah, the city, I can answer the question. Your lawyer and your city manager are the two people that serve at your pleasure at any time for any reason. If you want to bring it back up. I think one of the paragraphs says it starts on March the 1st and it lasts until it's terminated by either party. So at any point in time, for any reason, either one of the lawyers was not able to do the work and that's what you considered, or you just change your mind. There's no penalty for readdressing your city attorney at any time. So for any matter, if one of them wears brown shoes to work and you don't like brown shoes, you can fire your lawyer for anything. You don't have on brown shoes, do you, Brian? Okay.
Oh, we're good, man.
Okay.
No question.
Please, questions?
The only thing I just want to clarify, and obviously you just mentioned this as well, just for the record, that this goes back from being an employee to a contracted service. So there's no severance pay. If there's any break in the relationship, we decide to go a different direction. They maintain their own insurance. The only thing that we're going to pay above the contracted amount is going to be for education. For anything that if they go out of town or go out of the county, we'll be paying for that mileage as well. But other than that, they maintain all the coverage of insurance. And the only thing outside of that contract is just the things I just mentioned.
Yes, that's the standard vendor attorney agreement.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Frank, you want to add anything to this?
No, Keith covered it well.
Anybody from the floor want to say anything about this? We're hiring a team of lawyers to take Keith's place. It takes two to take his place. Okay. With that, I'll move the council to page 13 and ask for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to approve the contract, make a motion to approve the contract with Robert Ward and Brian Coleman to provide city attorney services.
Thank you, ma'am. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you all. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, likewise. Brian, we look forward to working with you. Thank you, sir. Just information-wise, we will set up a time to swear in Brian and Mr. Ward, and we will also swear out Keith.
I like that.
Whatever that term would be. Okay, next we go to Downtown Associate Community Program. And Mary, I think you're handling this for us, please.
I am. Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to return before you tonight to ask for your approval with moving forward to make application for the Downtown Associate Community Program. Recapping key points from our discussion in January, Councilman McClure identified that this program is an on-ramp to the Main Street designation, and there is a minimum financial commitment of $5,000 annually, which can be up to 3 years. Mayor Pro Tem Kimmery inquired about the selection process and what it looks like to be a good candidate. Graham is positioned as a favorable applicant due to the vision to grow downtown, backed by council, connected with the vibrancy and inventory of the historic buildings and the tenacity of the business owners, wherein the community as well as visitors are shopping, dining, and being entertained in downtown. Councilwoman Wiggins inquired, in my opinion, what is the greatest asset and make an application to the Downtown Associate Community Program. My response was, acceptance into this program provides a comprehensive strategic plan to augment my role in downtown development. Furthermore, I will receive opportunities for concentrating trainings, technical support, identifying community assets, economic drivers, and to further develop a mission and a vision under extensive professional guidance for downtown. Now, if you'll look at the slide before you, I've intentionally included this visual map. We all are very well aware that Graham is positioned 0.6 of a mile away from the interstate. And if you were anywhere in Guilford County or in Durham, your route to arrive in Graham is going to differ from my route. So we have different roads and paths of how we can get to downtown. The outcome hopefully is to shop and be entertained and dine. So likewise, with my role and my charge of being the Downtown Development Coordinator, I just want to be clear that by you affirming that we can move forward with the Downtown Associate Community Program, it's not a one-stop, end-all, be-all. It's a road, it's a path, just like with the map of how we arrived to Graham. It's a first step in providing structure for me to grow in my role. So I'll entertain any questions that you guys have at this time.
Griffin, please.
Yeah, just in your growing understanding of the program, our business association has had a little bit of trouble defining what exactly is downtown. Per this program, how do they go street by street or proximity or geographically to define what is downtown? And we may not know yet, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, Alexa, Nathan, and I have been in conversation with what that looks like. If you can recall, the small area plan has to define, I call it a trapezoid. It's a unique design. It's not just the 8 blocks of downtown. So I believe as we move forward, I may be back before you asking you to determine what is that geographic area look like. But today I'm not asking you that.
Skipper, please.
No question.
Lee, questions, please.
So following up on that question, I assume that the Main Street program and this associate program, will they come in and help us to define that area, what they will, or is that part of the committee that you will put together if we're approved to be part of this?
I think it would be a charge more on the committee
Right.
and staff with citizen input and council backing versus it going back to the staff of the Main Street organization.
Yeah, because just the designation being a Main Street designation kind of, limits you and puts you in a certain area within the city.
Right.
And I'm just wondering how much of their programs have extended beyond what cities consider their Main Street, as Council Member McClure alluded to.
I'm not aware of any designated areas or cities that extend beyond their downtown districts. I think
Gotcha.
we would say underneath that same platform that we'd have to define what our downtown borders are.
And if we're selected to be in this program, then they will help us determine the amount of individuals, the number of people that will be on the committee, regards to population and size and et cetera.
Right. They do provide extensive support and resources and, have a whole slew of individuals that are on the listserv that can help with lessons learned and best practices. I'm sure they've encountered other cities, but I don't know that to be fact as far as, trying to determine what is their barriers and borders for downtown.
Thank you.
Melody, questions, please.
No, sir, thank you.
I have one. We have 2 resolutions: approved resolution of commitment and approved resolution designating coordinated entity for the audience. What are the difference in the 2?
So the resolution is to confirm that council supports it and makes the commitment financially of a minimum of $5,000 and then designating a staff person to be the 20-hour committed employee for the chair.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Anybody from the floor want to speak on this? Not, then I'll move the council. The first one, approve a resolution of commitment. Your motion is on page 20 of your agenda.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the signing of the following resolution of commitment to the North Carolina Main Street and Rural Planning Center to participate in the Downtown Associate Community Program. And I would like to go ahead and include the second motion as well, if that's acceptable.
It's acceptable. Do I have a,
You probably need 2 separate motions if that's all right.
That's fine.
You got 2 separate resolutions.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Be a sticker.
No, I'll make a motion on the first option.
thank you, sir. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Next, we approve resolution designating coordinating entity.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve signing the following resolution to designate the Downtown Development Coordinator as the coordinator for the local Downtown Associate Community Program.
Thank you, sir. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you all. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate the good work on this.
Thank you.
Next, we go to C, Public-Private Partnership, a P3, East Interstate Service Road Development. Alexa, you want to give us a rundown on that? Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to bring this back before you tonight. In January, presented what the public-private partnership plan or opportunity that's out there for us to convert the existing property on Service Road, Interstate Service Road. And so tonight I'm back before you. One of the members of the public brought before us an opportunity potentially to purchase the property outright, and it was the City Council's prerogative to allow some time for that individual to present an offer. It is my understanding that there have been no offers on the property in that time period. Okay, Frankie may have additional information.
Just this afternoon, we received an offer on the property. We have not had the opportunity to analyze the offer and we're not prepared to make a recommendation at this point as to whether or not the council should consider the offer. I will tell you that the offer is for $225,000, which is about $100,000 less, over $100,000 less than we have invested in the property. So
Recommendation then, Frankie.
give me a chance to do a little more research on market values. What are the potential gains if it were to develop industrially? But a little more time is what I would need for the offer. As far as the P3 partnership, just as last month, we could work on these things concurrently. There's nothing that would stop us from, Alexa's request would not encumber the city. It just says, hey, let's try this. We may not get any proposal. We may not get a suitable proposal. And we can go back to potentially an offer. So my recommendation would be to work on the offers and the P3 opportunity concurrently.
Alexa, you too?
My recommendation would be in concurrence with Frankie's request to have some more time for him, but also concurrently working on this project in the event that the city isn't interested or is unable to accept the offer that was on the table.
Questions? Chipper, start with you, please.
Question, Frankie. We have a bid. Does that mean that now we can entertain upset bids?
If that's the council's wishes. Generally, you have some intent to accept a proposal before you go through the upset bid process. But by no means do you have to, keep the offer and sell it for what someone's offered. With real property for cities, you have to sell it through some competitive process. Upset bid is the typical route we take. You can do sealed bids, auction. Those are other options, but upset bid is probably the most appropriate in this case.
Lee, questions, please.
I do. So Alexis, starting out, is there any examples of other cities who have entered into this public-private partnership in a very similar situation of what's being proposed here as far as building a spec building to see what the results? Is there any information out there as to how this has worked out for other cities who have tried it?
So a lot of them are still in the early stages, I will say, in terms of they've gone through the process of getting a request for quote qualifications from the business or the private developers. and are just now in the stage where they've designed the product. There are some built out. I don't have any specific data as in terms of they were leased within 6 months of them being renovated or constructed. So that data is certainly going to depend also on the climate, the market.
Sure.
So all of those factors would play into it.
So there's very little evidence out there, and I didn't find any as well, that indicates what the return on money is when cities invest in a project like this, as far as the spec building. Is that correct to say that?
I would say that's accurate in terms of the public-private partnership. There are some private developer examples of them building out a spec building and having that return. It seems that if a private developer is doing it, there's a market for it. And they are going to know the market, and if there isn't a market for it here, are not going to put out a qualificate or not going to submit interest in being a qualified candidate for the program.
So this land was purchased almost 10 years ago?
Thereabout, yes.
And this land was purchased for what reason? Just for the record.
So my understanding is it was initially purchased for a project that was also a public-private partnership that the city entered into. The developer, the contract who it was with, fell through. The financing didn't follow through, and the city was unable to move forward with the project without that private developer footing partial part of the bill for that.
But the city went forward initially and bought the land.
Correct.
Okay. The $335,000 that we have invested in the property, this was before my time, does that include the tax revenue that we've lost on the property for the last 10 years?
I don't think so. I think that's just
That's the
out-of-pocket
purchase
costs.
price, I think.
So that's the purchase price of the two parcels that were purchased and combined
Yes.
to be one. So these public-private partnerships, are there ones out there where the city or municipality kind of sets the terms and then sends it out for a request for qualifications instead of just blindly putting it out there and saying, bring us back something and we're going to explore what the best option is?
So we can set certain qualifications in terms of we want 100,000 square feet. We're looking for industrial building. We want to see a certain percentage of the development be done by MWBE or minority businesses. So we can set those stipulations in our request for qualifications, and depending on what the council really wants to see is important within that RFQ, we can ask for those up front, and those can be our standards or classifications for.
Sure. So we could put terms out there and say that the city is only interested in some private contractor to fund this 100%, and potentially the incentive being that the city might subordinate the land, hypothetically, and put that out there as those terms have to be met for us to be interested in you, instead of the idea of someone coming back and saying, yeah, I'd be interested in putting 50% of the money up on a $6 million project if the city will throw $3 million at it.
It may be worthwhile to not put those terms in the front end and just get the qualifications. And then when you negotiate with the developer to say, these are sort of the terms we're willing, and then there's a back and forth discussion with the developer that you're wanting to work with from those that respond to the RFQ.
Okay.
Just as a way so you don't weed out everyone. Maybe they have an understanding.
Unless we intentionally want to weed them out, because
Well, if you weed out everyone, you don't get a response at all.
yeah, but $3
So-
million on an investment when we've already got a piece of land that we've lost is the problem. That and this has nothing to do with your proposal. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Melody, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So just to clarify, we actually are in control. If we begin this process, then we will be working on the terms of what we want to see. And we are actually in control pretty much of what we put out there, and what we're going to get back will be up to whatever we put out there, correct?
Correct. So
Right.
they will respond to the criteria that we put in place.
Exactly. So in addition to all of that, Alexa what does it cost us to pursue this progress right now?
So there's not an upfront cost other than notifying or putting out public notice of this RFQ to proceed. The next step after you've negotiated with the individual or place that you want to contract with, that's the stage at which you negotiate what your terms are and identify what is the cost the city's willing, if any, to put into the project, what is the private developer going to put into the project, and what is the return on investment for the developer and the city.
Right. So it is also correct, is it not, that we may start or stop this process at any point in this process once we begin? Is that correct? As we
Yes.
see fit.
Yes, so I would say after you've signed a contract with the contractor or the developer, you could say that it's contingent upon the design phase and the financing, being sufficient to make the project feasible.
Excellent. Thank you.
Griffin, please.
Yeah, and this probably can go to Frankie or Alexi. Alexa already spoke to it, but what I heard just a second ago conflicts with a little bit of research. Said we purchased a parcel for 185,000. Are there multiple parcels?
2 parcels that have since they've been recombined. So the tax records probably do not reflect the full cost of both parcels.
Do we know that cost?
It's around $335,000.
Okay, so there's nothing built in as far as work we've done since then, or marketing fees, or
I believe when I calculated that figure a couple years ago, it was just the cost for the land. I don't recall if that was the cost for professional services or not, but there would be surveying costs, attorney's fees as well.
best I could tell, that conflicts with what's on the tax card. Just
Correct.
okay.
So that's the case sometimes when you have multiple parcels combined, or when you divide parcels, sometimes the history is a little incomplete.
Yeah. And I have one more question for Alexa. In the staff report with comparable properties, the example you gave was the difference between a comparable property and the tax appraised value versus the asking price, and that was sort of noted as sort of the potential for investment or increased investment on our part. But looking around that area, I would hope that we'd get, and I know we're in the beginning stages of something that's non-binding, but there are a lot of comps right around there of similar size. Nothing new like we would do, but there's a business that went out of business in the last 4 weeks on an adjoining parcel. That building would certainly be empty as well. I would hope we could get, as we move down the road, get some more. Is that in your plans to get some more specific comps in that area and things that are a little more tied to actual market value?
So there's a challenge with getting comps in terms of there's not a new building of the same size and scope in that particular area. So it's would be based somewhat on the ones that are in existence that are for sale. At the time when I did the research for this, that was the only property that met the size qualifications and was in the neighborhood of that property that we're talking about on Interstate Road. So we can certainly do some more research on what the asking cost is for per square footage that those properties are getting, and do some calculus on how much more a new building might obtain in terms of the lease out or sale of the property.
Great.
Alexa, what other public-private partnership have we done in the city of Graham?
Have we done in the city of Graham? The only ones that are not necessarily technically public-private partnerships, but that we've assisted with are some of the industrial buildings, Lidl and such, providing the infrastructure, roadway and water sewer taps that helped facilitate those projects.
That's a children's museum.
So I'm not familiar with that project. It was before my time.
That would be a public nonprofit partnership,
Well,
but
I know, but it was
And the Arts
modeled
Council.
after the same thing. So we're batting 500 here. We'd be in a Hall of Fame if we're playing baseball, but we're not. We're dealing with money here. We can do both of them at the same time, is what you're saying. We can put it out for bids for the people that want to try to buy it and do this process at the same time.
Yes.
What is the cost of this process?
So there's no initial cost, but there will be a study or a design phase where we'll identify the financial implications for the project itself, determined by the size of the building, the scope of the project. And all of that will be developed after you've signed a contract with the developer that has the best qualifications. And then they go through the design phase of the project, come up with the feasibility of the costs to build and what the terms of the financial arrangements are going to be. And then the city can determine at that time what, if they're willing to proceed with the project.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Does anybody else want to speak on this? When you come up, give us your name and address, please, sir.
My name and address,
Yes, sir.
Gary Reniger, live out 3600 Spanish Oak Hill Road, Snow Camp.
Nice to have you here, sir.
Rick Herlocker, 1724, Saxby, North Carolina.
Nice to see some faces I recognize, but my name is Gary Reniger. I've been in real estate for about 20 years, and I really want to take this opportunity to introduce y'all to Mr. Herlocker. Offer has been presented on Mr. Herlocker's behalf for the East Interstate Road property. And of course, y'all have not had time to study that or anything, but I wanted y'all to understand that he is someone that has contributed positively to the business community in Graham. He runs a family-based business that employs 6 full-time employees. Many of them are his sons that are in the back there. And he's simply outgrown his space, and he's looking to build a bigger operation and would prefer to own it. It is true he has submitted a plan to the city through his current landlord for another site to build a bigger facility, but his landlord is also aware that he's looking for a site suitable for himself to build on. Him and his wife have been married for 38 years. They're both veterans, and he learned much of what he does in his trade while he was in the military and turned those skills into a private sector job. He believes that the new location would be beneficial not only to his business, but also to his existing customers, some of who like are waste industries. And because he is DOT certified, he feels that being located on the interstate will give him the opportunity to respond quicker in the event of emergencies and things of that nature. He's very environmentally conscious, because I'm sure that might be a concern, because his business is working with large trucks and trailers. And he's very conscientious about that. They keep a clean shop. They recycle all waste oil and takes pride in their business. He plans to install landscaping and lighting and make the property as much of a showpiece there as he can and operate his business. He would greatly appreciate giving him this opportunity to expand the business if it comes to that. It's harder for small businesses to get incentives and things like that from cities that big companies get to move to towns. I believe he'd be a beneficial addition to the family in Graham. Let me see. We understand that its property is under consideration for a joint venture. Apologize for getting off here at the last minute. That's just the way it worked out. He wants to build about a 12,500 square foot facility there. I don't think the offer rises to the expectations and hopes that the city has, but I don't think it's an insulting offer. So we just appreciate the opportunity to sent Mr. Herlocker to y'all, so you get to meet who we're talking about. And maybe next meeting, y'all will get to discuss that.
Herlocker, you want to say anything, or?
I appreciate the opportunity to come in. We come in a little late on that. We had to get 3 or 4 people together to do it, but we're already a business here. We'd like to grow our business, and we'd like to own our property if it's possible. Family business, it'll be around as long as the institution holds up. It'll be around for years and years and years. But again, just thank you for letting us come up and talk again. I hate to keep encroaching on her. She's made some good talk, and I don't mean to slight her, but I'll take it if I can get it.
Would y'all mind answering questions that the
problem.
council has? Lee, would you start, please?
No questions.
Kelly, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you much.
No question.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
You guys. Yeah.
Anybody else want to speak on this? Come up, Jennifer, if you would, please. Let's have your name and address, please.
Jennifer Talley. I live at 808 Sodby Street, Graham, North Carolina. I just looked at the proposal, and I was just curious, did Alexa put the proposal together, or did Frankie?
It came out of Alexa's office.
So who was the local developer that she talked to get the price of $30 to $40 a square foot for an industrial building? I'm just curious.
Does it matter?
I mean, I don't know of a single developer that would give that price. I can't imagine $30 to $40 a square foot. That just seems, when you go by like taking any kind of opinion out of it, just appraisers have to use Marshall and Swift guidelines. And, you know, here in this area, and they go by region, I mean, it would be anywhere between $70 and $80 a square foot, which is a big difference between $40 a square foot.
We're comparing apples and oranges. We're talking about a shell, just a shell, not an update.
I know, but for commercial build, are you saying that you stand by that price of $40 a square foot?
We were advised that's what they use for their estimates.
Okay, and the other question was just what Jerry said, that when we've done those projects in the past, I think the main reason was, and I think one of the things that I think she talks about in her proposal was that you have to show, I guess this is in consideration of the general statute, but a critical need for the building. And if it's a spec building, I don't necessarily know that we could legally show a critical need for something that we don't even know what's going in there. But the Children's Museum, you know, we had a lot of caveats in that project where we owned the property, and if at any time that building was used for something else, it would revert back to the city. So, I mean, the city is in an excellent position in that particular project. And I know that the idea of this land initially was for the Mid-State Magic Project, and that was going to have a senior center, which again that was going to be a 501c, it was a 501c3 and not nonprofit. And I know that there was definitely a need, and still is a need in our community, for a senior center. So I just get a little nervous about millions of dollars going out of taxpayer money for something unknown. If it was so profitable, a developer who is going to make a profit would have bought the property and done that. And I just hope the city council will consider the fact that, you know, Gary has 20-some years in the industry, and the tax assessor who assessed the property just last year, you know, came up with a value that is very consistent with the offer that was given. And it definitely is a little unreasonable to have a property on the market. I didn't really see it advertised that much, and I look at the MLS every day. So it may have been on there. I just didn't see it marketed very well. Maybe there wasn't a high commission on it. I'm not sure, but it just didn't seem to be advertised that much. And no reduction at all on that amount.
And I was like you, Griffin, I thought the price was lower, closer to 200,000. So I don't know what all is figured into this price of 300 and some thousand, but guys are very smart, and I'm sure you'll take everything into consideration. I think that the cost for what was in the plan seemed a little low to me, significantly low to me. And I think if you look at Marshall and Swift in this area, I think you would agree. And I hope you'll consider Mr. Herlocker, homegrown boy, his offer, and I hope you'll consider allowing him to be able to have the opportunity to grow his business here in Graham.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. Anybody else? If not, then we will close this portion of the meeting and we'll discuss it among ourselves. What does everybody think?
Mayor, I just want to say that the reason I brought up the idea and the request that we put some terms out there in the beginning is I realize that this is not going to cost the city any money, but it cost private developers and the commercial builders a lot of time to put these proposals together, a lot of time. And I don't want to waste anyone's time because I can't even think of a scenario where I'm going to spend several $1 million of taxpayers' money on a spec building. So I don't want them to spend all this time putting these requests for qualifications together to come back to us. And I don't know how the rest of the council feels. I'm an individual, but I can't see that scenario unfolding for me. And if,
I think she was saying, I don't think she was saying there's no cost. It's no cost up front to begin
for us.
But if
We gotta be
got
serious.
into it, it would be a cost.
When you put something out for bid, I think it's very important that you're very serious about our request for qualifications, that you're very serious about moving forward and designating those terms and that understanding as to where we're going to be as a council and what we think the finished product is going to look like is important at this point, so that these requests for qualifications can be very specific to address our terms. Again, given the opportunity, I would take 50% on a commercial project financing by a city every day.
Well, due diligence to move forward costs money. Move forward with this plan. They can write all the plans you want. It doesn't cost much for her to write in her office. But once we put this into motion, it starts costing money. Payers, there's
Sure.
all kinds of costs that
Well, that only comes after we award the contract on the request for
to
qualifications.
have a ready built site, you got to do more than that.
That comes after, am I understanding that correct? That would come after we select that contractor.
Then the
money
starts.
starts.
Yes. I mean, we're
But
saying
before
the same
then,
thing, but we're saying it differently.
Look, someone who's put together proposals for qualifications, requests for qualifications, proposals, it takes hours. It takes a lot of time. It needs to be a serious, we put this out when we have specific projects in the city of Graham that we know we've got to take care of. I don't like the idea of just throwing something out there and going, make us a proposal.
I'm with Lee. I can go this route to subordinate the land only. I cannot go with 50-50 or go into a spec build. But to subordinate the land and then be paid at the time of the developer sale, I can go along with that.
And use the land for incentive. And that's what I brought up at the last meeting. I mean, that's done all the time in our industry. When you have a difficult piece of land, you subordinate the land, and when the builder or developer sells the land, then they pay an agreed upon price for the land. So you're not having the land costs that you're having to carry. You're not having to pay the interest on that money. And the day that the builder gets paid, the city gets paid for the land. And the only thing we're putting up is the land, which has been sitting there for 10 years.
I have trouble with the critical need part as well at this point, especially with an offer on the table. I think I would prefer this specific action be tabled if we could leave it as an option. If we don't have any other offers, I would love to weigh the subordinated land option versus this, but I don't see the argument here for this sort of investment. I know that's not what we're doing, but you make a good point with us getting in the minds of contractors and developers as being serious if we reverse course. I'd rather see us not take action tonight.
I think it's a gamble, and I just can't see doing the gamble. But
What would it take for the process for us to begin in your direction, Lee?
I would say just put those terms out there and say we're willing to put the land up as an incentive, and we'll only require compensation for the land at an agreed upon price when you sell the project.
Can we do that concurrent to while we're accepting what's going on with the bid?
I would like to start it.
I
but I just
feel like we don't need to do anything and sit and wait any longer. We need to take some action to pursue what we want.
Right.
So if we're going to do that, I have no problem in going either direction, but I would like to see us make some progress
Sure.
and not sit and wait to see if this coming in at the 11th hour is really what we want to do.
Sure.
How does
Okay.
upset bids play in all this?
Well, once we accept it, it'll go to an upset bid for so
Let me
many days.
give you another
We first
perspective.
need to do the research.
You have been presented with a proposal tonight for development of that property. What Alexa is proposing is you give the world the opportunity to come here and submit a proposal. Maybe Mr. Hurtlocker is the only one that comes with a proposal, and you say, I like your proposal.
Yeah, but what if we get 3 of them back and all of them are at 50% financing and the city has to put up 50%, and we know that no one is really comfortable about putting that kind of money in a project?
Reject them.
I know, but how many times can you reject it to the business community when they don't think you're serious anymore? That's very offensive to me because it takes hours and hours to put these proposals together. I've been there, I put them together. And when they're all kicked out, you go, well, that's fine. Then it's disrespectful in my opinion. Just put it that way. If we're serious, let's be serious and let's move forward, but let's set some terms that we're all comfortable with.
Can we leave the beginning of this process on the table as an option, one of 3 options, subordinating the land, a P3, or entertaining Mr. Erlocker's offer for a later meeting?
Would it be helpful if we brought you guys a draft RFQ or RFP?
Certainly.
Okay.
That would be our next step anyway.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you would be doing in the meantime while we're
If
waiting.
you guys said go forward tonight, the next thing we would do is draft an RFQ and bring it back to you guys and say, hey, is this what you had in mind?
Okay. Well, what we're talking about tonight, right here.
Right.
Yeah. Put those in there.
I agree with Griffin. I think let's see the 3 options. Give us all 3 options next time.
So Keith, if I may, I want to ask you a question because I've done this 2 different ways when you subordinate a piece of land, and that is first you convey the land from, you actually go to a closing and convey the land to the property owner. If we went that direction, then that builder or developer would start the taxation process. But there's another way I've done it, and that is just a formal agreement that the land's not conveyed until the improvement is sold and closed on the land. And that way it provides more incentive for the developer and builder who doesn't have to worry about being taxed on the land during the process of a year of putting this building together. And he only pays at the very end and the land is conveyed to the new owner.
The first way is usually done with trust. Now, Brian is here, and Brian has put back more real estate all the time. And so most of the time there's no deed of trust, and that deed of trust is subordinated to the bank's loan on the improvement.
Sure.
That's what the subordination means. You're going to get behind the lender for the improvement.
Yep.
And then when it's sold, they pay off both notes. And so that's how you would set the price in the first example that you've done. Now, I haven't done a deal in the second example you gave. I'm sure they're out there, but I've not seen that kind of arrangement done where you just sign a contract and then give them possession to, I guess it'd be some kind of lease or something that allows them to be in possession of the property and improve the property, and then it'd be paid out.
And I've never done that with an individual, or because it's very risky.
Yeah.
Because during that process, something could happen to the individual.
Yeah,
But with the city,
you'd want a bond.
with the city, I was very confident that we're not going anywhere.
Right.
we're not gonna move
But
away.
the other way around, you'd want a bond for the guy that's proposing to build the building because he could go bankrupt.
Sure.
And now you got the first piece of property than you had to begin with. So
And explain.
there are lots of risks.
And you brought up an interesting point, and it's one that I always go back to, and that is explain where the city would be if we financed any percentage of a building that was financed through through an institution, we would be taking a second, right? So we could potentially be taking a second on several $1 million. And if something happened to the builder, we would never be made whole. We would lose every penny.
Or the market, the economy, we've lived through about 8 years ago, a pretty bad downturn in the real estate market. So those things are hard to predict.
So any money we put in this project, we're going to stay behind the main source of financing, which is going to be the banks or whomever.
I don't know what the request proposal would.
But I mean, reality is, if there's any financing acquired for this project, we're taking a second, and seconds are rarely satisfied in the event that something forecloses or bankruptcy occurs. Rarely.
All right, I think we've covered this pretty well. I will move you to page, let's see here, 23. And I will move that we not adopt a resolution adopting statement of critical need to enter into a public-private partnership to develop a spec building on city-owned property in the city of Graham, North Carolina. And I need a second.
A second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Now I charge the staff to first move forward with the Herlockers offer. 2, put a draft on the table for the P3. And 3, subordinate the property, a plan to subordinate the property and the land for the March meeting. Do I have a consensus for that?
Yes. You do?
Okay.
Yes. Agreed.
Okay, you got that, Darcy? Is that everything we mentioned? Pro Tem?
Yes.
Is that everything we
Yes,
talked about?
sir.
Thank you, sir. Good luck, Mr. Herlocker. Okay, next, we get recommendations from the planning board. Public hearing, Woody signature, CR 1803, request Brian Wise to rezone property located 919 and 957 Woody Drive. Aaron, you're handling this for us, please?
Yes, sir. This request is to rezone 13.7 acres off Woody Drive and Whittemore Road from R18 to conditional residential with a proposed use classified as dwelling multifamily. The project will include apartment buildings with up to 264 residential units, as well as up to 24 townhome units. Amenities, including a clubhouse, office, and pool, are also included. At the request of the applicant at the January planning board meeting, the planning board voted to table this item until their scheduled meeting for February. The applicant wished to meet with the residents in the area to possibly make changes to satisfy the area residents. And I just wanted to note that section 10.247 of our development ordinance does provide planning board 60 days to consider a request, and then they are able to make a recommendation that city council can either accept or go whichever direction they wish to go. So that's pretty much where we are at this point.
Questions for the staff. Lee, please.
I have no questions, Mayor.
Melody.
No, sir.
Griffin.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody else want to speak on this? Then we'll,
Understand that the planning board has not made a recommendation yet?
that's exactly right, sir.
So it will go back to them.
When's their next meeting?
2 weeks from tonight.
Yes.
2 weeks from tonight.
All right, we will close the public hearing. If nobody else has got anything, discuss it. Everybody all right with postponing?
Absolutely. I'd like to keep it on the table with the planning board. Yep.
Okay. With that being said, according to 10.247 that he quoted, I need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, ma'am. I need a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. All right. Next, we have Graham Regional Park Universal Playground, award contract for the Graham Regional Park Universal Playground restrooms, picnic shelter, and parking lot. Brian, you handling this for us, please?
Yes, sir.
Good to see you, sir.
So just to bring the council up to date on the project, this universal playground from day one, from the design of Graham Regional Park, has been included in some degree. So in 2016, we started a process with a small group of educators from ABSS school system. They worked mainly with folks with special needs to design this playground. In late 2016, we applied for a Connect NC bond grant, We were awarded that grant in May of 2017. That was a $500,000 grant to build the playground. As part of that grant, council later that year also dedicated or kind of set aside $350,000 in addition to make the entire project an $850,000 project to add this playground to Graham Regional Park. So fast forward to December 20th of this year, we received grants or bids, sorry, for the restrooms, the picnic shelter, which is kind of the same structure, parking lot, lights, and any infrastructure involved around there. Those bids came back. The lowest responsive bid was $164,209 from Stonewall Construction, and that is what is on the table before you tonight. I'll be glad to answer any questions, or Frankie can answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Melody, would you start, please?
Brian, have we had any changes to the project since we originally designed?
For the playground or the park?
The park itself, in that section, I'm sorry, the parking area, sidewalks, anything?
No, not in that section.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this proportion devoted to the bathrooms, picnic shelter, and parking lot? Is that in proportion, and does that mirror the budget we originally looked at?
It does, yeah. And that part of the project is within budget. There are some others that we're looking at. In fact, today, the last couple of weeks, our public works guys have been on the ground doing some initial grading, putting in some stormwater issues and that sort of thing. They ran into some rock this week. Large piece of equipment was delivered late today. That's going to cost us a pretty penny to deal with that rock, depending on how long we have to keep that machinery. So there's a little bit of contingency that will be used up on the grading side of things. This project definitely fell within budget for the project, though.
You mentioned hitting rock.
Yes, sir.
Are forces going to take care of the rock, or is the contractor going to take care of the rock?
Forces are taking care of the rock.
City forces?
Yes, sir.
That'd be cheaper than the contractor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. No question.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So Brian,
Yep.
120 days to finish is what's being proposed?
Once the go-ahead is given from our city forces doing the initial grading, then the contractor will have 120 days to finish.
And they're ready to start within 7 days of an agreement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The big question that we talked about initially early on, do we know what the gallons per daily flow of sewer is going to be with the addition of the new shelter?
That will all be handled on the existing infrastructure that is on site. Anything moving forward, we'll have to add capacity to the park.
So the existing septic system, because we have no sewer available there,
Correct.
There's going to be a new septic system put in to take care of this particular shelter? Or?
No, sir. This shelter will be tied into the existing.
And how is that tie-in going to be? And the reason I'm asking that is because I remember initially we had a discussion, and I noticed that the original health permit had 2 shelters on there.
Yes.
Seems that one shelter has moved a little bit, and we're looking to improve the entire area around this playground because it's out in the open field. Do we know where that tank's going to go? Because there needs to be a tank, and then the supply line going to the existing septic field, which is at the back right corner of the property, which means that we've got a lot of improvement in that area. My concern is designating or working with, is Allie Williams going to be, because I see nothing about plumbing in here and where the lines are going to be in tanks and et cetera. That whole area is going to be improved.
Yes.
Eventually.
Yep. And Allie Williams has handled all of that calculation, and that flow seems to work out.
Sure. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Are we running this to the Covington's original septic system?
Oh, no, sir.
No,
No, sir.
We have an existing on-site septic system that we placed in service when we originally constructed the initial picnic shelter.
But it's running down the right side of the property. And the new shelter's on the left side of the property.
Yeah, we'll have to tie in from proposed parking lot into kind of across existing parking lot and then down.
I just certainly don't want to put anything anywhere where there's going to be improvement in the future.
Yeah, and our guys on the ground, city forces, are, with that in mind, they've asked Allie Williams to lay out where the future shelters will go. So they know where all of that future infrastructure will lie
And that's included in the contract cost
currently.
with the building being built, the lighting for the parking lot and the parking lot. So
Yes.
the septic system or the new septic tank and supply line will be part of that
Yes, sir.
proposal. Okay.
Yes, sir.
What's our timeline for the city finishing? Have you got one?
We were hoping to start in October. Couple of hurricanes and some issues in town pushed that back to, I believe they started the very end of 2018. Burke, our public works director, gave us at best case scenario 8-week timeline. So we're looking at the end of February at best. The contract could be awarded 1st of March at best, then 120 days from there.
Thank you, sir.
Overall, we have until 2020 to complete this project. I dare say I'd want to wait that long, but that's what's in the grant.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else want to speak on this? If not, then I will close this and we'll talk about it real quickly. Does everybody have any problems with this?
No.
Okay. With that said, then I move you to page 33 on your agenda and ask for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. I move we award the contract for Graham Regional Park Universal Playground restrooms, picnic shelter, and parking lot lighting with the sidewalk deduct to Stonewall Construction of Burlington, and authorize the mayor, city manager, city attorney, and city clerk to execute the contract on behalf of the city.
Thank you, ma'am. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Good deal. Good luck with it, Brian. We're pulling for you. You know that. Next, we have our audit presentation. Ms. Rhodes, I'm glad to see you got here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And Becky, you too. This is Patricia Rhodes, and she's going to do our audit presentation for y'all.
Yes, thank you, sir. Glad to be here tonight. My name is Patricia Rose. I'm with Stout, Stewart, McGowan, and King in Burlington. I have Joey Ferguson with me. He works with me on the audit. I'd like to just thank the council for allowing us to be here tonight to talk about the audit for June 30th, 2018, which seems like a really long time ago. We actually work for the council as the auditors, the independent auditors. We work with the city staff on the audit. This is the 4th year of the arrangement with Becky Loy and Cobb Ezekiel Loy, where they work with the finance staff to streamline the audit process and the year-end process, and then prepare the financial statements. And of course, they also provide assistance during the year to the finance staff. Stout, Stewart, McGowan, and King actually works as the audit firm. This arrangement seems to be working well, and it takes care of the issue of independence when the audit firm is not really considered independent when preparing the financial statements. So we as the auditors, since we do not, and we just review the financial statements, we are independent. If you will look on page 1 of the audited financial statements, that is actually our audit opinion letter. It states that the preparation and the fair presentation of the financial statements is the responsibility of management. The financial statements were prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The expression of the opinion on the financial statements based on the audit is the responsibility of the auditor, and our audit was performed under generally accepted auditing standards. We are rendering an unqualified opinion on the financial statements, which of course is the best and cleanest opinion that you can receive. Any questions on that? There was a change to the financial statements from the prior year with the implementation of GASB number 75. That's the accounting and financial reporting for post-employment benefits other than pensions, which is also sometimes called OPEB for short. The adjustment was made to the financial statements or recorded to record the liability for health insurance for retirees. That's what that was all about. And there was actually an actuarial report that was received, and there was the liability was measured at December 31st, 2017. So now the entire liability for the post-employment benefits is recorded on the financial statements. It also added a required supplementary schedule that's on page 59 of the audit report. And it also expanded the disclosures for the post-employment benefits, and that is on page 43. The management discussion and analysis that starts on page 4 of the audit report is a good overall summary of a very detailed report. And there's some financial highlights on page 4, which I'll briefly go over just a few of those. The assets and deferred outflows of resources exceeded the liabilities and deferred inflows of resources at the end of the year by $68,242,000. And that's considered the net position of the city. At the close of the fiscal year, the governmental funds reported combined ending fund balance of $12,767,000, which is an increase of over $900,000 from the prior year. Approximately 36% of this total amount, or $4,561,000, is non-spendable or restricted. The available fund balance for the general fund is $8,098,000, which is 67% of the total general fund expenditures for the fiscal year. Now the state average is about 46%, so you're well above the state average. The good overall financial condition of the city can be attributable to diligent day-to-day operating, monitoring of operating revenues and expenditures. We do consider internal control in our audit. We're required to report to you any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that come to our attention during the audit. We're glad to report that nothing came to our attention that we are required to report to you, and there were no prior year findings that had to be corrected. Now to the slides. This is all on the budgetary basis or modified accrual basis. But for the general fund, you can see that for the year 2018, revenues exceeded expenditures by $249,000. And part of that is due to the tax revenue being up a little over $240,000 from the prior year. And the collection rate continues to be very good at 98.87%. Sales tax revenue was also up a little over $250,000 from the prior year. There were some increased expenditures in the general fund for public safety and transportation, which mainly was street resurfacing and some other improvements. Are there any questions on the general fund? Next slide is the water and sewer fund. You can see that for 2018, the revenues exceeded the expenditures by $1,292,000, mainly due to an increase in the charges for services and some other fees, the impact fees that were charged, a little over $500,000. The overall expenditures were up slightly to about $280,000. And that was mainly due to some capital outlay, which were improvements that were done. Any questions on that? Next slide is the garage fund. You see there was a slight, or there was a $16,000 revenues over expenditures for the garage fund. Revenues were up a little over $100,000, but the expenses were also up a little over $125,000. The next slide compares 3 years worth of assets, liabilities, and for the general fund, the water and sewer fund, the garage fund, and Gray Memorial Park. And also it also shows the citywide net assets on the full accrual basis. But I won't go into detail on that. The last, there was a letter, 3-page letter in your packet, I believe. And that's a required communication to the council, and it's required by our professional standards. The letter states that there were no difficulties with management in performing our audit, nor did we have any disagreements with management in performing our audit. Are there any questions? A lot of information. It's a large report. Okay, well, we'd like to thank the council for allowing us to be the independent auditors. Also, thank you to Frankie and Sandra and Aaron and all the city staff for their assistance during the audit. And we look forward to working with Julianne in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do have a question maybe for Frankie, but it
Go ahead.
may be more appropriate for Frankie. I'm not sure, but.
Let me keep it in order. Let me go with Griffin first.
Oh, sure,
and I'll come
sure.
to you.
Okay.
Okay, Griffin, question.
I no questions.
No questions.
Please.
All right. So what stood out to me is it seems like that, through the years, we've had some joint agreements with the city of Mebane. One on an increase in the amount of water, and two, in an increase in the amount of sewer that they're using. And seeing both of these right here and looking at that number, it looks like that we are really owed a lot more money than we owe, which is a good place to be.
Absolutely.
So with the two agreements we have with the city of Mebane, close to $5 million that's owed to us. And we're almost ready to get Cherry Lane Pump Station paid off. We don't have too much longer on that one. That was a big one for us. Over $3 million, wasn't it? 3.2. So it's just nice to see that when it seems like more's owed to you than you owe. That's a great day.
And you also notice that the general fund revenues have increased, and that's also in part to interlocal agreements we have, particularly with economic development. But those are huge to our revenues.
Yep.
Melody, questions?
No, sir.
All right. With that, I'll say the council offer thanks to Stout, Stewart, McGowan, and King, also to Becky and Sandra King. Thank y'all for your hard work. Thanks to the entire city staff, and especially Sandy. It sounds like she's done a fantastic job. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next we have issues not on tonight's agenda. First off, we have Chris Faust and Jason Cook, two firefighters from the city of Graham. Come up, gentlemen. Thank y'all for being here, and we appreciate you.
Thank y'all.
Chris Faust, 1851 South Main Street, Graham.
Jason Cook, 1895 Challenge Drive, Graham.
Thank you for letting us be here. Mr. Mayor, council members, we're here on behalf of majority of the Graham Volunteer Fire Department members, both past and present. We would like to start by first thanking the council for allowing us to be heard tonight. In addition, we would like to thank both current and past council members for their continued support of the fire department and for allowing us to serve the citizens of this community. Graham Fire Department is rich in tradition and has proudly served this community since 1903. Our current slate of officers has over 227 years of combined experience. We love this city. Most of us attended high school in this city. We've chosen to live and work and raise our families in this city. Furthermore, the brotherhood that exists in this department also extends to our wives and children. Our kids are growing up together, taking vacations together, attending school, playing sports together. Many times being coached by the very firemen sitting in this room. Our wives are members of the Ladies Auxiliary. Together, we've raised money for various causes such as natural disasters, the Hydrocephalus Foundation, the MDA Fill the Boot campaign, our Christmas Cheer families, along with providing the annual hot dog luncheon after the Graham Christmas Parade. The brotherhood and traditions of the fire service are not unique to Graham, but we do believe that uniqueness does exist within our 116-year history. As many cases, there are generations of service where fathers have taught sons the very traditions that were passed down by their own fathers. Those traditions are at the very core of who we are. We will look out for each other and we will stand by one another, whether it be on the fire ground or in any other aspect of life. We believe that through the period of the chief selection process, certain negative aspects were advanced, outlining divisions within the volunteer ranks. We're here tonight to correct these divisive rumors
often which had agendas attached. Internally, we certainly don't agree on all the issues all the time. I'm sure the council can relate. We often disagree and enter debate on our individual positions, but it's that strong debate that allows us to reach better decisions, which ultimately makes us stronger. We simply want you to know that we are all in alignment in our mission with the same continued strong desire to serve our community. As you're all aware, the past few months have been a quite stressful and emotional time for our fire department as the retirement of our longtime chief came closer and closer to reality. As well, we believe you would all be aware that the volunteers had a strong preference for the new chief to be a qualified internal candidate. While we have an abundance of unanswered questions regarding that process, the movement away from promoting a qualified candidate from within can act as a deterrent from applying for entry-level positions in the future, as well as aspirations of the current staff. But rest assured, our mission has not changed, and we stand ready to answer the call. Pledge our full support to both the citizens of this community and the incoming chief. Thank you.
Well said, gentlemen. Anybody else want to speak on this? We've got a lot of firefighters here. Roar's here. Thank you, sir. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you heard this, that these guys are friends and stand by your son the way they have. And not just their son. You also had 2 of the professional firefighters that applied for this job and did very well in the process. I agree with you. We pushed hard to hire inside. But we've also pushed hard to keep these 5 people here out of the process, completely out of it. But this will go down in the records as a very well stated, it wasn't even a complaint, it was a promise, wasn't it? Got anything you want to say? All right, I'll move on then. Thank you, Jason and Chris. Next, we have Gary Ekman. Is he here? I think he might have left when we postponed. So I'll go to Aaron. Aaron, have you got anything else?
No, sir.
Mary, anything?
Yes, sir.
Right. Keith. Yeah.
He'll soon be here. I just want to say that I take a little bit of opportunity to not talk about me, but talk about you. I told Aaron a few minutes ago that I think y'all delaying my departure was just so you could punish me with another audit presentation. I'm sorry. I know that's your work and you love it, but if you gleaned anything from that, you ought to glean at what a great job you and your predecessors have done for the city. I mean, there are a lot of cities that are envious of your wallet, of your ability to do some of the things that you do. And 10 years ago when I started, right after that, or 11 years ago, right after that, we had a pretty serious downturn in real estate. A lot of your values are based on real estate, and a lot of businesses were hurting, and y'all took a big risk. The ones that were on the board then took a big risk in 2012 to start that industrial development commerce park, and didn't have to turn out the way it did, but it was a good risk. And now you guys the city is reaping the benefit of both your being frugal and being good stewards of their money. And I don't get to say stuff like that often, but because I'm leaving, I can say it now. Also, I've bragged on you before in the past, and I'll brag on you here a little bit. I'm in my 39th year of practicing law here in Alamance County, and I've been parts of public boards and lawyer for public boards. But this body is the public board with the most integrity that I've ever served. Even when you disagree in good faith, and that's a pleasant thing to watch. So I just brag on you a little bit. Thank you for allowing me to be your lawyer.
Darcy, have you got anything?
No, sir.
Thank you.
I will put Julianne on the spot.
Make her
Julianne
happy.
Corden is our new finance officer. I think most of you have met her. She got to hear our audit presentation for the first time, and I look for even better things in the future.
See anything?
I do. So I've recently, and I've gotten several of them, and I'd like to propose, what I've gotten some concerns, some issues. Now that we're enforcing parking regulations in the downtown, the loading zones, I've gotten several complaints on because they are a 30-minute restriction in the loading zone. And I've gotten several complaints because they are being monitored now and watched. And a lot of the trucks that, Griffin, you may be able to speak on this, but I've gotten several complaints on it. But it doesn't involve the drop-offs. It involves the trucks that come and drop off and then load back up, and being able to turn that in 30 minutes. So I would like to, just throw this out there, if it's the consensus of this council, to look at maybe, that's an ordinance, but having a public meeting, the next meeting, having staff to put something together about looking at those loading zones and extending that time for the loading zones in the downtown area from 30 minutes to, I would propose 2 hours, and that way it would make all the parking spaces and the loading zones the same, and would make enforcement a little bit easier as well. Just want to throw that out there, but that's been an issue.
Right now, it's not impossible to enforce
It's
it.
not.
Impossible to enforce it now because she only comes around every 2 hours.
Oh, she's doing a good job doing 30-minute from what she's
But I'm
telling
just
people they
saying.
got to move these trucks out of these loading zones. So she knows there's a 30-minute restriction.
All right.
And a lot of these trucks are pulling up, as I said, and unloading. And it's just not enough time to unload a lot of furniture and then reload a truck. It's in the loading zone.
Tell me what
That's
you think.
a little more than 30 minutes.
I haven't heard any specific complaints. We've more so had problems with our guys showing up and somebody camping out there, honestly. So more the opposite. We're generally in and out in 30 or 40 minutes. But ours is relatively easy. I don't know, Jennifer, are there two? There's North Main and East Elm?
Yeah.
Is that it?
No, there's another loading zone, South Main.
There
Main.
is, okay.
Yeah.
I'd put some thought in it and probably talk to our drivers and see what their thinking was.
30 minutes is a little tight, and now she's enforcing it, and so it's becoming uncomfortable for some businesses that are using them.
Yeah, I'd put some thought in. I haven't heard the same complaints, but
Frankie, would y'all look at that and see what other places are doing and see if we can do something that would relieve a little bit of pressure off them?
Okay, thank you.
Chipper, anything?
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank Keith for what he's done for our city. He's been a good friend. He has always been available when I had questions, and some of them were probably pretty stupid, and he was patient with me. But
I don't have to answer that.
that wasn't a question. But no, I'd like to thank him for his friendship. I'm still upset with him that he's leaving. And thank you for punishing him one more time. And but thank you, Keith. And if we get a divorce, I am getting a house. But thank you for what you've done.
I'll still be here.
I'd just echo that with Keith. I mean, the same civility and humility that you said we have, that I would say we've experienced that with you and this relationship as well.
Yeah, same thing here. The last 12 years, sir, have been awesome. And I appreciate you very much for always being there, for always being prepared and guiding us in the right light, in the right direction. We've come to you many times, and you and I've worked together many times. And I truly, truly appreciate you, Keith, and everything that you've done. Secondly, you're going to have a hard road to hoe. I'm sorry, Brian. I do want to also commend and recommend and recognize Brian Fawcett. Elaine Marin is not here tonight. Together, they have jointly submitted a grant and received a grant for the Historical Museum to provide monitors and signage. Brian, the exact amount was in my other notes, $5,000. They are not sitting still. They're continuing to move forward rapidly. The group is already considering other grants out there, but I commend you both for such terrific work that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank everybody for being here. We appreciate you.